We're going to be using nematodes today to treat vine weevil larvae that are in the strawberry beds. We're also going to talk a little bit about what nematodes actually are and when it is a good idea to use them, and any cautions around actually using them as well. So first of all, nematodes are a microscopic form of roundworm that when we buy them, we are buying millions usually, that we are going to be then adding to the soil. These are things that are already in our soil in different amounts and are beneficial or parasitic. So the ones that we're buying are obviously the beneficial ones, and they are being used to target certain things to treat them and kill them off. So these nematodes work by entering whatever it is that we're trying to treat, and then they release some bacteria. That bacteria will usually kill whatever it is that they're targeted. So for this time, the vine weevil larvae, and they will die usually within 12 to 24 hours. It is obviously difficult to work out whether or not these are very effective and whether or not they have survived. When we get the packets, as many as possible are alive because they've been in optimum conditions. But the different temperatures and the different conditions that they've been moved in are going to make a difference. So I've ordered these and they arrived very, very quickly, which is fantastic. But then the weather was really sunny and too hot, so I've held off of using them straight away. So some are likely to have died within that period. But then we've got to, at that point, judge whether more are going to die within the heat and whether or not we're going to struggle to keep those beds well watered in that time, or whether or not it's better to wait. So ideally we want a day like this where it's overcast and these are going to be watered in, and then we want to keep those beds watered for as long as possible. Within that time of the beds staying watered, they are multiplying as well, and we are hopefully then going to increase the population of the nematodes. Each type of nematodes are targeted at different species and different pests that we're actually trying to deal with. However, it doesn't mean that they won't actually cause a issue or kill off other things. So this is where we need to be really cautious. So first of all, I don't ever use these as a preventative. I'll only ever use them as a cure. And even then, we really need to consider whether or not there is enough of an issue for a cure to be needed, and whether or not the natural nematodes or the natural pests in our own soil is going to deal with these before we actually need to introduce something like this. So for me, I've had the larvae in the polytunnel over winter. So this is going to be the second treatment for that particular bed. So I know that they have caused an issue and I know they've been multiplying. So it hasn't been something that they were able to deal with. The soil itself is able to deal with, and that soil is in a raised bed and it doesn't have any access to the ground as well. So by adding these nematodes is going to be making a difference because they're not going to be naturally moving in from different areas. For the strawberry bed outside, and bearing in mind it's only a couple of plants that have been struggling, then I could have left it and continued to monitor and see whether or not this is something that's needed treating. However, because I'm ordering it for the ones inside the polytunnel, it just seemed to make sense to treat those as well. And at this point, we'll be looking at the 2 treatments for the beds outside, and usually 2 treatments for the vine weevil larvae is adequate. That's once in the spring and once in the autumn. But you may find if you've got a really bad problem that you may need to use them that little bit more. So while these definitely give us a organic and natural way of dealing with these pests, and a way that is not going to harm our pets and our children and cause any issues to us, it is something that I'm very cautious about using. And that's really sort of about thinking organically and thinking about whether or not we need to upset the balance that is already there within the soil, or whether or not it can be something that the soil itself can manage and deal with. First thing we're going to do today is to make a paste in the jug using the tray of nematodes. This is a larger one, so you may have less in your tray than I do. And then we can use this solution to use the watering can, or you can mix it up and use one of these feeders as well. This is just an old jug that I'm using here. Is pop these nematodes in, Just wash this out as best you can. There are millions of them in here, so we want to get them as many out as we can. And for this one, we're using half a litre, and then we're just going to break these lumps up and make it into a paste. Keep stirring it until you've got no lumps remaining. So normally if you are using it into a watering can, you'd be stirring this into 10 litres. So I've only done half a litre here because I'm going to be popping the majority into this feeder, so I don't want it as diluted. But then what you're going to do is you're going to take every half a litre of the solution from your 10 litre bucket, and you're going to fill it up until you have 5 litres total, and then that's going to do every 20th of your area. That will depend on the size of the packet that you have, so these instructions might be slightly different, so you'll want to make sure it's at the right dilution for what you're doing. So I'm just keeping a small amount of the solution to use in my watering can now. And then for this one, you just fill it up to the fill line, and we'll be connecting that one to the hose in a moment. So now I'm going to be using this solution that's left, which is around a fifth of what we totally had. I'm going to be adding it to this watering can, which is going to be 10 litres total. And then I'm going to fill the remainder up. You want to make sure that the rows on this watering can has got large enough holes. If they're too small, then they won't be able to come through, so we don't want to fine rows. So we want it on the flat, and we want it on the feed and water. So we've already watered, now we want it on feed and water. Then we're just going to give it a bit of a shake to make sure it's all incorporated, and point and spray. So now that we have fed these nematodes, the next thing that we need to do is make sure that they stay alive over the next week or two. So we want to make sure that we are watering daily unless it's going to rain. If it's really quite sunny again, then we are going to want to make sure that that's compost, that soil is kept damp.